From the factory at Dodge, these engines put out 200 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque. But I want to push things a little bit further for this build. The goal is to get to 600 horsepower, and at 600 horsepower, we're going to be pushing about 12 to 1300 foot-pounds of torque. Typically with a V8 scenario, your horsepower is going to be somewhere around your torque. But these put out a lot more torque than they do horsepower. So whatever your horsepower is going to be, your torque is usually going to be about double. That's about as much as a Kenworth or a Peterbilt. I chose to go with Powerdriven diesel for all the parts for this. They got with their racing team, performance team, and said, this is the list of stuff you need. And I said, okay, cool. We're gonna put all the parts on first before we put the body on. I don't even have the body yet, so we're gonna have to do it anyway. But it's easier since everything is open. There's nothing obstructing our view. There's nothing obstructing our work. Everything is wide open. So let's get started. Check it out. This is sick. So this is our new BorgWarner turbo. This thing should move some serious air. Stock turbo has a 3-inch outlet, and this one has a 4-inch downpipe or outlet or housing or whatever. So our factory exhaust is totally useless on this. First thing I want to do on that front is the turbo. Just because that's, like, you know, obviously the coolest part. I want to see it on there. This is our oil feed line. This is pressure from the engine. Stuff's been on there so long, it's like welded to itself. There it is. There we go. This is the oil drain here at the bottom. It's also stuck. Little tap should help us out. There we go. That's all it takes. And then our 15mm housing bolts. And then it should really come right off. I sprayed them down. All these heat cycles make them hard to get off, you know. I mean, you obviously see exhaust gas temperatures are way hotter than the temperature of the rest of the engine. I mean, it's 900 to 1200 degrees, so you can see the discoloration between the exhaust. Everything to do with the exhaust is no paint will stick, you know, and that cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, expand, contract, just pretty much welds everything together. She's off. So sitting directly next to each other, you can see the size difference in the housings. I mean, that BorgWarner turbo is pretty big. This one was 54mm. This one is 63.5, I think, millimeter housing. This is a S364 SXE BorgWarner turbo. I'll put the parts list of everything I ordered, like my direct invoice from Powerdriven. So if you're ever looking to do what I'm doing, you'll get the exact parts list. So I cleaned up the surface of the exhaust manifold. Here is our new metal gasket. I think we should be good to put it on. So if you look at this, how the factory one was, the oil feed and the oil drain were pretty much vertical, and these are almost horizontal. So I think you can undo these bolts right here, and you can actually turn the whole housing. You have to be able to adjust it. I mean, you can't run it like that. There's no way. Beautiful. Isn't that cool? Wow. It's pretty cool, man. Nice. Okay, just easy does it, you know, easy does it. Vertical. I think there's another adjustment on this because if you look now, my oil feed is vertical, my drain is vertical. That's really where I want those two things. But the turbo housing, see how far off that is? There it is. Boom. Absolute perfection. Kind of weird that that wastegate, man, this is all really tight fits. That wastegate doesn't want to fit, that's for sure. Alright, so the turbo is officially installed. Got all the bolts tight on the manifold. This is loose because before you start it, you're supposed to put oil down in there to help lubricate the bearing before, you know, it gets oil on first startup. Only problems I had were the oil drain pipe right there. Let me get you in there. See how close it is to that nut? I actually had to take that drain pipe and kind of tweak it a little bit and actually dent it because I don't want to. I spent a lot of money. I don't want to buy any more special flexible lines. So really close clearance on this V-band clamp, but I just had to loosen the wastegate up, tweak it a little bit, and put the V-band clamp on, and we're good to go. Now I got to put the air cleaner on it and some tape over that, and we can move on to the next thing. So I made out my handy dandy checklist here of everything we have to do to get to 600 horse, 1,200 foot-pounds of torque. We are officially done with the turbo. All of our air is done. That was the easiest thing we're probably going to do. Now it's on to the fuel. So we're moving to the other side of the engine. We're going over to the injection pump and injectors, but we're going to start with the injection pump and all that we have to do there. So I'll show you what we have for that. So we have an AFC foot, air fuel control foot. It's shorter, which allows more forward travel. This is a max travel kit for the air fuel control, which also allows for the most travel that this is going to give us. Bigger delivery valves that go in the barrels of the injection pump. We have 4K governor springs, which allow the engine to fuel at a higher RPM, up to 4,000. This is a socket, this is a washer. Injector installation kit. This isn't just an installation kit, these are nozzles. So what most people do is they buy injectors and they have to send their old ones in as a core. But really what they do is they just switch the nozzles out. Even with the discount I got on the injectors, it was still cheaper to buy the nozzles themselves, and we'll take the injectors apart and put the new nozzles in. Got a shim kit and a puller kit for the gear on the injection pump, and that is also going to be used in tandem with this degree wheel because we're going to be advancing the timing. Timing is different than on gas engines. A major difference with diesels rather than gas is that the injection pump is the heart of the whole operation because it is your distributor and it is your carburetor, all wrapped up into one mechanical assembly. On gas engines, you know, you can change the timing by just turning the distributor. You know, you can do it in real time as the engine's running. Gas engine's timing is not static, it's variable. So like as you're running, obviously, if you accelerate, the timing advances and then it goes back, you know, depending on if you're under acceleration or not. Diesels aren't like that. It's like static. It's like set in stone. Changing the timing is more of like an event, and it stays there. It doesn't change. To get to the injection pump, we got to take off the intercool piping and the intake. I don't know what you would call that. The intake inlet. take our injector lines off, which means the valve cover is gonna have to come off. Ow. So in order to get these injector lines off, we're gonna have to undo all of them from the pump and all of them from the injectors, and this whole assembly should just lift off lock, stock, and barrel.
Here's my little professional injection removal tool.
I guess from the video, these barrels unscrew, then the delivery valves come out with like a magnet, and then the new ones just drop right in, and then you put the barrels on.
Man, what an engine.
Yeah. Just industrials all get out.
Wonder if they're doing a lot of this stuff at their shop.
Yeah, they build these engines, they race them.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. They got a whole shop where they have a dyno and they build these things in-house.
You have to turn the pump pressure up on this?
No.
You don't have to do nothing to the pump itself?
No. This one's at a weird angle here. Probably just gonna do one at a time.
Is there a torque on them?
Yeah.
What do they torque that?
80.
What's this degree wheel for?
Advancing the timing. So I'm gonna crack this loose. Oh.
Careful there, buddy. Get no dirt down in there. Too bad you ain't got some little plastic caps.
So what they said to do, fish the old one out. Okay. And then there's a washer in there that has to come out. And I do not use it with the new valve. But the washer is like
Copper, ain't it?
it's not, yeah.
Brass?
It's not steel, so I have to actually fish it out. Okay, and then they said don't use it, just put the delivery valve in. They said 94 and 5 is the only years that had these. They've never seen them on years after. They said you don't need them with the new delivery valves. That's what they said.
I wonder if these ever go bad. I mean, come
What?
on, man.
If what,
Any
the
of
pumps?
these delivery valves.
Oh,
I mean, how many miles do these pumps run?
Oh man, there's no telling. Just drop the new one in. New O-ring on the barrel and put it on. Delivery valve is in. All right, number 2, these take a little bit of force. all the delivery valves are installed. Our new O-rings on each barrel is installed. So we're going to torque these down. They said to torque them to 25 and then 80.
So they specifically did say 80?
They said 80, and then once you go from 30 to 80, do it in one fell swoop so you don't risk turning the barrel. Turning something internally in here. You want to do one swoop. So doesn't feel like 80 foot-pounds.
You want me to go get my snap-on one?
Yeah. This doesn't feel like 80.
I'll go get that snap-on.
I don't know, for some reason mine doesn't quite feel like 80. So we'll go 75, 80.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's accurate.
I definitely got any little bags or anything we can put over the tops of them.
I got those.
Little rogue bug get in there.
Yeah, you never know.
Dude, you never know, man. Crap happens.
So I think what we're going to do next is we're going to do the injector nozzles. Those are going to be 5x16s, which is like 200% over what stock was, I think, something like that. I don't know what stage they are. Some say stage 1, 2, 3, I don't know. They're 5x16s. They're pretty beefy. So the return lines got to come off, and then we'll use Dad's homemade injector puller. All right, just like that, return lines are off. That nut is just supposed to pull right off there, right? It's not coming off.
Take much to pull it out. Them ones I pulled out came out right out. Look at that.
Looks like it's coming out.
Yeah, right when it got to the end, I was able to lift it right out of there.
There's your stick.
Isn't that perfect? I hit it right the first time. Ooh. 30. Ooh. 35.
40.
Oh, did it go?
I think, yeah, 40.
40? Between 35 and 40. Let's write that down. Put that on that paper towel.
There's your, ooh, that was just the copper seal wash. It's alright.
That was close.
It's alright. It's alright. Okay.
You better clean them up. There's dirt in there, buddy.
Alright. That wasn't too scary. Kinda. So that we're not using. Oh. That needle.
It's in there.
Okay. So we will not, I guess, reuse that needle.
See, there's three different holes. Is that?
I see it. Yeah, it's like that.
I mean, you can use Vaseline if you have to. Like to hold it together.
Oh, these three holes line up.
Yeah, that's what I just told you.
What washer? That?
Yeah.
Goes on the outside.
Yeah.
Alright. So now we can torque it. See on the box it says 12 valve 5x16, which is the number of holes, size of the holes. VCO is the spray pattern. The first gen 89 and 93s had SAC injection. SAC was the spray pattern. VCO is the second gen spray pattern. That's why the first and second gen injectors won't interchange. They're not the same size. They don't have the same holes. They're not the same spray pattern. This is a 145-degree spray angle nozzle set, so it sprays out at 145 degrees.
You sure you got that hole pointing this way?
Yeah. There it is.
That's enough. You make it nervous.
So I got this second injector apart right now, and I'm about to put the new nozzle in it, but I just wanted to show you guys kind of how an injector works. So it's the injection pump's job to deliver the right amount of fuel at the right time to the right cylinder. Carburetor and distributor wrapped up in one machine, right? So the plunger in the injection pump comes up. It's creating really high pressure, and the fuel doesn't know where to go. So that is the job of the injector. You see that really beefy spring right here? So it's just creating pressure and pressure and more pressure until it finally overcomes this spring tension, and it allows that fuel for a split second to pass through, go down the injector, boom, spray out, and then it closes again because the pump rotates away from the plunger and it closes. Put that in, make sure this is correct. And just have to do this 5 more times till we get them all done. So now that all the injectors are together, I'm gonna try testing these. This is a pop pressure tester from Amazon that I bought, and what it does is a couple of things. So there's a certain pressure at which these will pop open, and you're reading the pressure at which it pops open and lets the fuel through to know if you're low or high or whatever, and you can also see the spray pattern. So what this will tell you is if the pressure, let's say it's supposed to pop at 4,000 psi, they measure all this in bar. I measure it in psi, but it's usually measured in bar. If it's popping at 3,000, but it's supposed to be popping from the factory at say 3,700, then it's popping low and it's wore out or something in there is wrong, and you need to shim it. And this is what these shim kits are for. Where did I put it? So that's what these shims are for. They're 10,000 shims, and you can put them in there to stiffen the spring up and pop it at a higher pressure. This one right here, if you look, that ain't right. See that? How it's just spraying like, that's not right. Something in there is wrong. So let me show you another one. See that? Nice spray. You can see all 5 of the, the 5 holes, the spray pattern. It's atomizing. See, that one's working as it should. But I also have another issue. I called Powerdriven about this. From the factory, these pop at 265 bar, which is like 3,700 psi. And this one, see it? It pops at 3,000. And they said that the injector might be put together wrong or something like that. I don't know, I'll take it apart and see, but I tested all the other injectors. They're all popping at almost exactly 3,500 PSI. This one's popping at 3,000, and then this one is our problem child. Honestly, at this point, I'm kind of regretting buying nozzles, trying to save some money. I should have just bought the injectors where they probably would have thought of all this and had the right pop pressure, and there wouldn't have been anything in them. I wouldn't have this problem, and I could just put them in. I just had to save $300, but it's costing me more than $300 in labor probably trying to figure this out. I mean, it was put together correctly so far that I can see. Hopefully this fixed it because I'm getting kind of scared. Okay. So I took this injector apart. I put 2 shims in it. Again, these are 10,000 shims. They're very small. And so now when we do it, we're getting around 4,000. See that? It's breaking. Bam! Right at 4,000 it's breaking, and when you look that up, that's about 275 bar. So 20 thousandths gets you, heck, what was that, 500 PSI more or more? I mean, that's a lot. That's what I'm saying. Diesels are very technical, very interesting actually. So I think 275 bar is good, 4,000 PSI. I'd say that's close. They said like 270, 280 bar, so 275 I feel is within the realm of reason. Moving on to a different injector, where are we at here? We're at about, this one's at 3,500, almost exactly. So let's try adding 1 shim to that and see what it does. Let's see where 1 shim got us. 4,000, almost exact. See that? I decided to add another shim to it because that's still like 260 some bar and you want like 270 some, 280. So I don't know, we'll try this, see where it gets us. 4,300 I think. Yeah, 40, I'd say 43 exactly. Hold on, let me see what that is. That's like 296 bar, so I'm gonna take that 1 shim back out. It added way too much. Okay, so as far as the injectors go, it's actually taken a lot longer than I thought. I wasn't anticipating the pop pressure to be so low and to have to fix all that, and I used up all my shims and I had to go to Ace Hardware and actually get some other washers. I had to grind one down to get it correct, but they're all popping at about 275 to 280 bar, which is like around 4,000 PSI. I guess the reason that it's higher, they want it higher from factories. If you're going bigger injectors, you want a little higher pop pressure, and also they say that higher pop pressure, not crazy, but just a little higher, it gives you better atomization with the fuel, you know, because when it blasts in there at a higher velocity, it has a better chance to atomize, get with an air molecule. But you'll notice the 6th hole is empty, and that is my doing. You know, I guess I always believe in talking about your mistakes, even though you don't want to. I was taking apart one of the injectors, and I dropped a piece down between my legs. It went down into the floor, and I've been looking for it for half the day, and I cannot find it. So I've tried magnets, I've tried sweeping the floor, I've tried looking around the edge of the concrete, might have fell into the dirt. I cannot find it. So, you know, it's just a stupid amateur mistake. And so we don't have a 6th injector, so I might have to actually like buy another one or something like that. So we got 5 out of 6. That's where we're at. Tightening down the injector nuts, torquing those down, and I have some gentlemen here. It's Saturday. They're working on the house. I'm putting skirting around the house, so like block skirting, because all my heat and air, it just gets out from underneath the house. It doesn't insulate very well because it's all escaping. But right now, someone is coming to pick up the Sky Goat. Dalton from Pole Barn Garage, when he was here for the duct tape drags, left his car here because he didn't want to drive it back to Missouri. he didn't know if it was reliable enough or going to overheat. So he has a gentleman coming to haul it back for him. Okay, so as far as Dalton's car goes, I haven't looked at this thing since he dropped it off. Hope this thing starts, Dalton. We need a battery. I'll rob one out of this caddy for now. Give her a few pumps. All right, before this thing dies, I gotta get some brake clean. Yeah, go ahead and go in there and try and fire it. This is Kevin. He has a YouTube channel. What's your channel name?
Cruising with Kevin.
Cruising with Kevin.
Yep.
What do you do on your channel?
Mostly just automotive stuff. Pretty whatever I can afford, basically. Done some spare body stuff. We're gonna be working on my son's got an original 60,000 mile 76 square body there.
How old's your son?
He's 18.
Do you guys work a lot together?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
That's good.
He really likes it and he spends all his money on cars, so.
That's good.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, keep it running. It's probably just cold. It was kind of cold last night. Our first chilly night was last night. The house actually got down to like 66 degrees. It's been in the hundreds into October. Yeah, it's crazy. Stops on a dime. Dang, I'll tell you that. I like his little camper setup on the back. Nice little jig there. Got a door and got a door and everything, man. You could put the tailgate down, put a chair on the tailgate, open your door, just hang out, man. Put a little light on the thing. It's funny. So the internet says these are supposed to be torqued to 101 foot-pounds. It's very specific. I don't know why it's not just 100, but I'm going to see what it takes to take them off. It didn't click it. 80. Yeah. It's about 85, 90 foot-pounds is what it takes to take them off. I wonder why they say 100. It looks pretty good back here. Doesn't look like it's leaking a bunch of oil out of the rear main. So that's good. Let's do it to 90, see how I feel about it, and then we'll do 100 if I feel good about it. Okay, so I actually went through the trouble of finding a manual online. You would think that that would be like common knowledge. You would just look it up on Google. A million people have done this. It should be like the first result. It's like a big hidden secret. I looked up a 95 manual and it does say 101. So 101. I don't know what's up with the 1. I think they were also doing this in Newton meters. Like they were doing conversions from Newton meters to foot-pounds because these engines didn't use all standard standard bolts and standard torque specs. They were using metric in these years, so some of the torque specs are also in metrol. Man, that's just a lot. On our list of things, we can knock off delivery valves and we can knock off flywheel. I would say injector nozzles, but you know, I can't give myself a pass on that. All 6 aren't in, so we're gonna have to wait to check that off. So what we're gonna move on to now is more injection pump stuff. First, we actually have to get to the stuff. This is our fuel solenoid that shuts the fuel on and off. So the first thing we're going to do on the pump is the governor springs, and that is these guys right here. They're stiffer than stock. Inside there is 2 sets of weights opposite of each other, and there is springs in those weights. What they do is as the engine turns, those weights are trying to come out. Centrifugal force is pushing them out. And once they're all the way out, the engine starts to defuel. And on stock, that happens at about 25 to 2800 RPM. The springs we're putting in are stiffer so that we get max fuel for more RPMs until that centrifugal force finally overcomes that spring tension and the weights come out all the way and start to defuel. Now our springs are supposed to defuel at about 4000 RPMs. But I don't think people realize just how ginormous these injection pumps are compared to these engines. Look at how massive that injection pump is. I mean, that's my hand, you know. My hands are pretty big, and that pump, man, if you held that, you'd be holding it like a 9-pound baby, you know. I mean, they're huge. Golly, what an industrial piece of machinery. So the first thing we're going to do on the pump is the governor springs, and that is these guys right here. I blew it off around here just so I get any dirt. Take this off very carefully, and then we're probably going to have to turn the engine. You got to turn it to actually get to them. We got one literally facing. What are the odds of that? That's hilarious. All we got to do is turn the motor like a little bit. And that's about perfect. Yeah. This is like a nut, and it's got 2 splines on it, and then there's your stud. I don't have the special tool to do it. Probably have to take something and grind the middle out. I think what I'll do is take this handheld file and cut a notch in the top there. Alright, so this nut has cam bumps on it, and I'm going to count how many it takes to take it off. So wow, why is it so hard? Well, that just created a lot of work for myself. There it is. That's the piece. Okay. I thought I was going to have to take this whole housing off. I was headed there. Man. Okay, let's not do that again. That was really that was scary. Just to make sure it's the whole piece. So there's nothing down in the housing. Oh, man. Okay. There is 2 more shims down in there. There is a like a wear washer and an idle spring washer, and those stay in there. Here is the springs. This big one is the idle spring, and these are the actual governing springs. Our idle spring, the big one, which we will be reusing. Here is the bottom base, which we do not use, and then here's my other governor spring. So what we're going to be using instead is these stiffer governing springs and the new base, and we will also be using, come on now, idle spring. Idle spring goes in. All the other springs go in just like that. Alright, now that we got that one in, I'm going to move on to the next one. So there's 2 sets, and the other one is clear on the other side. They're directly opposites. Alright, we're coming up on our second set. This has got like a cam on it. That's why when I'm moving it, it's hitting the edge of each cam. So the base. Little click. One more. And a good one. Okay. Let's get this cap back on there before something bad happens. So right now I'm on my way to my friend's new shop. Him and some other guys worked for a pretty high-end custom car restoration shop in town. They build like, I don't know, $250,000 vehicles, really high-end stuff. And I guess a lot of the guys, I don't know the whole story, but a lot of guys quit and started their own restoration shop, custom shop. So I'm on my way to check it out right now and see what they're doing. Man, I need me a lift. I like that. What's going on?
Hey, have you met these guys?
I have not.
This is Travis. This is Mike.
Mike, I've met you.
Yeah,
yeah.
How are you?
Good to meet you, man. Again.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Paul.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Hope you guys don't mind that I'm filming. So, what happened? No, I'm sure it was it. So you got all this, is this all the suspension parts? Are you to lower it? Is that what you're doing? To lower the front end or just put new suspension in it?
Putting Mustang 2 rack and pinion in there. You can look at that old pile of the old, that's the old Chrysler stuff, Chrysler Dodge.
Oh, this is the original stuff?
Brakes and upright spindles.
Alright, so I see what they're doing. So they're taking all the original, all the cross member stuff out to put in modern suspension, disc brakes, I'm sure, and then I saw you guys had like a crate motor for this, right? From like Blueprint?
Yeah, we're getting a 408.
408. So, what transmission?
What transmission's going in this?
4L60E.
So an automatic?
Yep. We're going to keep it column shift. The idea is from a distance it should look stock,
Yeah.
but it's going to have 465 horsepower
Nice.
and independent front suspension with coilovers all the way around.
That engine you're getting, that's a Chrysler engine, isn't it?
Yeah, Chrysler LA, small block, pre-Hemi.
Is there some adapter plate you have to get to a 4L60?
Yeah.
Ford 9, 4-link, yeah.
4-lane. Yeah.
That's right behind you.
Nice. Yeah, this is a clean car. This is a nice looking car. So did you guys gut the interior too in this?
Yep. There wasn't much to gut being.
Yeah, so the bench seats front and rear came out, and then we're gonna put everything back very original. Black vinyl. We'll do the headliner perforated vinyl, and then the seats are gonna be built by TMI, and they'll be like semi-flat benches, but a little bit of a bolster, a little more modern, and then we'll do the door cards and kick panels to match.
Was the interior like in decent shape when you took it out? He
It
just
was,
wants updated?
Yeah, it was very, very, like, you know, probably redone 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But like, it had like the wool and just no stitching and very, very plain, very stock. If you look at the dash, we're going to keep the stock gauges, but we're going to update them all for modern, for fuel injection, and we're going to convert the car from 6 volt to 12 volt.
Oh yeah. Wow, this thing was original.
Yeah, very original. It had the cloth wires in it, and you know, just very original between the visor and the trim and the, you know, the hubcaps and all.
So you're rewiring the car.
Complete rewire, head to tail. It'll have discs front and rear, and then in the rear will be a, you know, a Positrack 9-inch forger.
It's kind of cool to check out what they're doing. They just started that shop, and yeah, just like what I thought. They all hated their boss, and they all left together and decided to start their own thing. So they kind of do what Dad and me do, work on old cars and bring them up to snuff, and they do a little bit more custom work. But the difference is we do videos for the video, and they're actually for hire. So if you want some work done and you're in the Southwest, you know, Hype Motor Co., here's their phone number, 480-862-9301. So if you need some classic car work done, they do everything. Suspension, engines, I mean, interiors, they'll do anything you want. So I really hope that it goes well for them. You know, they know their stuff. You know, they're not dumb. So I put the original springs back in here just to have them. But just to clarify, this is a 3K, 4K kit. And, well, you say it says 3K, 4K. Which one is it? 3,000 RPM? 4,000 RPM? Well, it depends on how many springs you leave in there. So the kit came with 3 springs per setup, and if you take one of the springs out, then that's a 3K kit. But if you leave all 3 springs in, like I did, that's stiffer, and it lets you go to 4K. So that's why it says 3K, 4K. So what we're going to do next with the injection pump is the AFC foot and the Max Travel Kit. I'll explain more in detail about what these do and why we're doing it. But AFC means air fuel control housing, air fuel control. That's what this is. So this right here that sits on top of the injection pump behind the injection lines is your AFC air fuel control housing. So there's 4 bolts that hold it on, and it comes off. And this is sort of the brains of the operation, because it has a line that's connected to your intake, which is reading, you know, direct boost pressure. Whatever your turbo's putting out, it's in the intake. It taps in a little bit and lets some of it come in here, and instead of escaping out into the atmosphere, this would be plugged. It goes into this housing. There's like a little diaphragm, like a vacuum diaphragm, like a rubber circle. As boost pressure comes in, it moves the AFC foot, or the rack of the injection pump, forward. And the more boost, the more it pushes this forward. It's directly connected to the rack. The rack moves forward and back with the AFC housing, and either delivers more fuel or less fuel. So we'll take this off, and we'll get into a little more detail on this right now. For the springs, I ended up cutting up one of these Harbor Freight El Cheapo scrapers. I cut a notch in it, and that seemed to do the trick. Sometimes that's why I like buying cheap tools, because, you know, I mean, you can cut them up and you don't feel bad about it. It does what you need it to do. It's more useful to me as what I just needed it for than a scraper, because the scraper came in a kit of 3. I could just use the other scrapers. I don't care. Just like that. Man. Yeah. And not too much. Out of the 4 screws that hold this on, this one's like a tamper-proof one. It's just a circle in the middle. There's no way to get a screwdriver on it. There's one over here too, but this one we're gonna have to grind a little bit into a screwdriver shape. See if that gets us anywhere. Yeah, baby. Good Lord. Oh, whoa, that's on there. I think I cracked it. Did you hear that? There it is. Holy crap, man. There was no need in all that. This plate right here, this is called your fuel plate. It limits how far that foot can go forward, and we're just going to take it off. And we do not reuse it. That's the ticket. These injection pumps are fascinating. I think they're interesting. Very interesting stuff. So here is the boost reference from the intake, and here is our AFC foot. And as this AFC foot travels forward, see that? It pushes the rack forward on the injection pump. If I have this air pressure gauge, we go to 10 psi. Right? 10 psi. See it? How it's moving? That's about 10 psi. So, again, defueling, fueling, defueling, fueling. This is 10 psi. That's about 15. That's about max right there. As that AFC foot moves forward, it moves the rack. As the rack of the injection pump moves forward, it's not giving it more fuel per se in the same amount of time. What it's doing is increasing the time of the injection event. See, at 15 psi of boost, it is as far forward as it can go. It is max fuel at 15 psi. With this turbo, probably 40, maybe even 50 psi, but definitely 40 to 45 pounds of boost. So what does that mean for us? So there's two bottlenecks in this AFC housing. One is that foot you saw moving forward, which is what this new AFC foot is. It's a shaved down AFC foot, meaning it's a little bit shorter, which means it can travel further forward, pushing the rack forward more. And the other kit, which is the Max Travel Kit, allows the diaphragm that's up top here to move further forward with the AFC foot before it bottoms out. See? Now with this cap off, you can see it better. Here's that diaphragm I was telling you about. Here is our Max Travel spring. Okay, AFC foot out. Now if you look at these side by side, you can see that this one is shorter. It doesn't need to be that much shorter. We're talking millimeters of rack travel that are going to give us a lot of horsepower. These injection pumps are very sensitive, so that's all it takes. And you can see this is a little shaved too. See how this one's at more of an angle and this one's straight? That cut, like those small cuts and that small amount cut off is all you need to get all the travel and all the power that we want. It's pretty insane. But yeah, look, USA, Powerdriven, I like that. It's cool. Let's take our pressure gauge and see what it maxes out at now. We're at 0. We're at 5. We're at 10. See, it moved. We're at 20. So now we're maxed out. That's about 30, 34 PSI, 33. Alright, so we're 35. We maxed out at about 35 PSI. So hold on, let's go back. From stock, this AFC foot was max rack travel, max fuel at 15 PSI. But that made sense for the fuel and the air that it had. It was burning that 15 PSI fuel, it worked in tandem. But now we have much more fuel and much more air. This turbo should push maybe 45 to 50 PSI at boost. 45 for sure, maybe 50, but we'll say 45. Think about it now. Do you want max rack travel, max fuel at 15 PSI? No, you don't. But with the way things are set up now, it would be dumping so much fuel in at 15 PSI, you would have black smoke everywhere, you would have tons of unburned fuel, you would have high exhaust gas temperatures, the turbo wouldn't be spooling correctly, it would be a mess. So you don't want all the fuel it has to give at 15 PSI anymore because we have a lot more fuel to go. And the turbo has a lot more to go. You want it later. You don't want to ask for it till later. So we'll go ahead and put this back on for now and cover up that hole, and we can check a few more things off the list, right? Awesome, what a cool little jig. And our new modified air fuel control housing gets to go back on. I'm sure there will be lots of adjusting this when we get it running. So now I think we're done with everything that involves the injection pump, I'm pretty sure, besides the timing, but we're gonna have to take this all off to do the timing. But the internals of the pump I think are done. AFC stuff, housing stuff, governor springs, delivery valves, so we can knock a few things off our list. We can knock off the max travel kit, we can knock off the AFC foot, and we can knock off the governor springs. It's 3 things. And as far as that last injector goes, I bought another injector that's supposed to be coming in today, and what I'm going to do is I don't know if it's a Bosch one or not. It might be a knockoff, I don't know. It didn't say it was Chinese made, but it didn't say Bosch, but it said it was new. So it's coming in today. What I'm going to do is take it apart when it gets here and take that piece out and put it in my original one, just because I know it's an original high quality one. Let's move to the stuff we have to do to like the engine itself. Let me show you what we're doing for that. So engine wise, what we're doing is Chromoly 12 valve spring retainers and locks. These are upgraded spring keepers, valve keepers and locks. These are 60-pound valve springs. These are stiffer valve springs so that we have no chance of floating the valves at those higher RPMs. We have upgraded stage 2 push rods so that we do not bend any push rods. And then we have head stud kit. This is an OptiTorque part number 10392 head stud kit. I was going to go with some slightly cheaper ones, but I said, you know what, I'm not playing that game this time. I almost, to save 200 bucks, it's in my soul. It's just in my soul to save money, but they recommended these and I didn't want to spend the money, but I did because I'm like, you know, I don't want problems. I do not want this engine coming apart, and I just don't want it. I do not want it to happen. So I got the more expensive ones, you know. So these things look pretty stout, look pretty cool. But coming over to the engine, what we're gonna have to do there is, I'm dumb. I got ahead of myself and I put all the injectors in. I wasn't even thinking. When we do these valve springs, I'm not taking the head off. So during this whole process, I am not taking the head off of this engine. So in order to do that, we're going to have to do the head studs, the valve springs, and the push rods without taking the head off, which can be done. So what we're gonna have to do is, I got this, where is it? My dad gave it to me. Give me a sec, hold on. So this tool actually allows you to compress the spring and take the spring off without actually having to take the head off and get like that big C-clamp tool on it. Once you take those valve keepers out, that valve's gonna fall right down into the engine. So what you have to do is you actually have to hook pressure, air pressure, to this hole to basically fill it with air pressure so that once you undo that retainer, the valve stays up and does not fall down. Using basically reverse engineering the compression gauge. Instead of pushing compression out, we're going to be feeding air into it to keep everything in place. Take all these rockers off, and we are going to have to mill these rockers. So with the head studs, I think they're taller, like the nut is taller, and it will hit the valve cover. So you actually have to notch and mill the rocker pedestal. There's a little bit involved here. It's going to be a little bit involved, and it's going to be tedious, kind of like the rest of this process. So, man, adventures with Dad always stick with you, right? Years ago, maybe I was 16, 17, I bought this old Craftsman toolbox. This got to be out of the 40s, maybe the 50s, at a auction Dad and me went to. It was like a closed down auto shop, old school place, just full of stuff. I don't even know why I bought this thing. I had no use for it. I didn't know where to put it. It just kind of sat randomly for years until I bought this place and was able to move in. And even then, it still sat outside before I built this. And but it was full of tools, And this has been my magic box ever since I bought this thing. I pulled drawers out, and it's just always has the handiest thing, right? Taps, dies, old school stuff. So anyway, I was looking to label those rocker pedestals because I want to know where they were to put them back correctly and everything. And I remembered finding dies in here, like little punches. And I said, maybe there's numbers in there. And look at that. 1 through 6 number punches. Look at this old branding. C, Pange, O Pange, OCNN USA. Alright, so the block for the skirting is here. He just dropped off the first pallet of bricks. It's going to close this whole gap up. It's a cool little forklift. Goes in the dirt. Man, that's a useful tool right there. What is that? What is that?
Mortar sand.
Oh, it's the sand.
Yeah.
Oh.
These are sand.
Okay. Oh, I guess he opens it up and dumps it on the ground. They don't leave that little box here. Oh. Huh. Interesting. That's wicked. Oh, and then he goes on the hooks. I see. That is a sweet setup. That's cool how you load that thing.
Works real good.
That's cool. That's efficient. I'm shaking them because I can feel as I'm pulling it up, I'm pulling the lifter up, and I don't want to pull the lifter out of its bore. So I'm like shaking it, and I can feel when the lifter lets loose. See, I felt it let loose. It's kind of like a you gotta be there situation to know what I'm talking about. But yeah, oil, man, creates a film, and it creates sort of a suction cup effect. There we go. There it is. So I think I want to get the hardest part of this out of the way first. This is going to be something I'm going to have to ask Dave for. If you haven't been watching the channel long enough to know who Dave is, many of you know Dad comes to the rescue for me anytime I need help. With something, you know, Dad's always there for me. And then when me and Dad don't have the tools for something, that's when we go to Dave. Dave is a machinist by trade, and he's got like a full-blown machine shop at his house, and he always helps me out with projects like this when I need help with stuff like this. You know, we don't have milling machines and lathes and stuff, so let's go down to Dave's and see what he's up to. See what Dave's up to. What the heck you doing in here?
Making parts, baby. No, it's a long sleeve shirt, and it got too hot, so I offed it. So we could have, it doesn't need to be all the way over there, it can be over here too. That just makes it repeat left to right, right? Bring me that picture, will you? They want it 1 inch 80, right? It's hard to measure from here to here, but it's easier to measure from here to here, right? So I'll figure out what it is this way.
Right.
Because we're going to be cut. So we're taking the overall 1 inch 80. That's where your ledge is going to be. And it gives you 1 inch 620. So you can bring the calipers up and go 620. And then when we cut, the next thing we're going to do. This locks the quill. This is your Z axis. Okay.
Dave cut me loose on this. Gave me a crash course on how to mill, and he set up the measurements for me, so I'm just following his measurements that are on this screen over here. All of our rocker pedestals are machined nice and perfect. Make sure you guys thank Dave in the comments, man. Seriously, give Dave some kudos, because without him, I'm not sure what I would have done, man. You know, what a great neighbor Dave is. Not just because he helps me when I need him to help me. He's just a nice guy. And to have that equipment and to be willing to stop what he's doing and help me, I really appreciate it, and I'm grateful for him. Because my other options were to buy pre-milled pedestals, which are expensive. You know, that would have cost us a lot of money. So he saved us a lot of money just letting us mill those. Two, if Dave didn't exist, I'd be running around town trying to get somebody to mill these, and nobody would have wanted to do it, and they'd have charged all kinds of money, and they'd have been gone for 2 weeks, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes, you know. Went right down the street, boom, got it done in a couple of hours, and we're back. I'm taking this apart real quick, because I actually put something together wrong. I didn't even know there was an instruction manual for this from Powerdriven. I didn't read anything, I just did it and watched some videos. So I actually did a few small things wrong in here that I want to correct before I move on to the valve springs and the head studs and stuff. I put the washers they sent me, I just sandwiched in between the AFC housing. You're supposed to put both of them on the same side. Alright, so tighten this up. And on the AFC housing cover, there is a screw right here that goes inside the housing, and they said to back it off until it is flush with the AFC housing. Alright, so we're going to hook air pressure to the cylinder. The engine might actually turn a little bit. We should be able to compress this spring. Alright. Magnet. There's one keeper. There's the next keeper. And there's our valve. Beautiful. We got number 6 cylinder done. And this piece I'm using right here, this is actually part of a compression gauge you can get at Harbor Freight. It's a diesel compression tester kit, and this piece comes in it. This is just an air fitting I had that fits my air hoses, and I had to get a piece from Ace Hardware. This is it's an 1/8" male to 1/4" female pipe thread, so I could thread in this to fit my air hose, because there's another piece that goes on top of this for the actual compression checker kit. So when I hook this up, the flywheel will probably turn, and one of these rags will probably come out, because the piston will be coming up on one of them. See? Whoop. And check out this old tool I'm using to do this. This old USA made tool. This was my dad's. He let me borrow it to do this. But isn't this a neat old tool? I have never seen another one of these for sale. Look at that old handle. Looks like something out of the 20s, that old sprocket handle looking thing. This tool brings back some memories, actually. I mean, it really does. The last time I used this tool, I was probably 17, maybe 18. I used it on a 77 Chevy pickup to do the valve seals. This was back way before I even thought about YouTube or anything like that. You know, this was back when I was buying, like, I couldn't even afford to buy a car that ran to resell. I was buying bottom of the barrel stuff, fix it, sell it, make a few bucks. And I was really proud of this 77 Chevy I bought, because it was one of the first trucks I bought that I could actually drive on the trailer to take home to fix and sell. I didn't have to winch it on the trailer. I thought, oh, how efficient that was, man, moving into the big leagues. But it smoked real bad. You know, I was trying to fix the air conditioning and fix various stuff on it, but it smoked. And I was like, Dad, what do we do to get it to quit smoking? And he said, well, it could be getting oil down in the through the valves. Valve seals are probably bad. So I said, well, how do you do that without taking the head off? You know, I mean, I don't want to take the head off just to put on some rubber seals. He said, well, here's one trick you can do. And it was what we're doing right now. And then he brought out this tool. And I used it just like I'm doing now to put new valve seals on it. And they were as hard as a brickbat. You know, of course, they crumbled in my hands as soon as I touched them. And I put new valve seals on them. And I put it back together, and it quit smoking. And I want to say I bought that truck for like $400. And you know, I did my thing to it. I fixed it. I fixed the air conditioning, and to this day, I think I put 12 back in it. I think I put R12 back in it, and to this day, that was the coldest AC I've ever had in a truck. Never have been able to get there since. Only truck where I could blow in the vents and I could see my breath. Never been able to duplicate that again. And I think I sold it. You know, it was a work truck, conditioned truck. It wasn't anything nice, you know, long bed. It was kind of beat up, and 350 with a automatic. I don't know what it had for an auto, but I think I sold it for $1,400 or $1,500. I want to say I made, you know, $700 or $800 on it, and I was happier than a pig in crap, man. Moved on to the next deal. We got a few more things done. I'm very happy and excited. Let's see, we got valve springs in, tranny stuff no, torque no, rack plugs no, push rods in, head studs not in. That's what we have right here. For these head studs, we're doing them individually. So in the sequence that they want them torqued, we're going to take a bolt out, put a stud in, torque it to 100. We're going to do that for all 26, I think. There's 26. And then once we've done each individual one in the sequence to 100, then I'll go around and torque them all to their final torque, which is 135. From the factory, it's 125, but for these OptiTorque super fancies, whatever, they're 135, 10 pounds higher. So let's start with number 1. So this is our first one in the direct center. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So we'll take it out. Got the new stud, and they give you a special sauce to put on the threads. It's like a, I don't know, whatever, something to help torque it. It's like anti-seize, but, oh gosh. It's like anti-seize, but OptiTorque's brand. Screws on nice and easy, no binding, because binding and crunchiness and turning it, if it twists down really hard, then you're gonna get a wrong torque spec because it's working against whatever dirt you have on the threads. All right, so we do a hundo, do them all like that, and then do 135 around. Alright, so all the head bolts are torqued. I went through all of them one by one, did them at 100. Once I was done, hit them at 135. All the rocker pedestals are on, springs, keepers, push rods, all that. Right now I'm headed to a place called 3 Points to pick up a differential that I think is going to work for us. It's actually almost exactly what I've been looking for, so that's about 45 minutes away. It's almost getting dark, so we're going to be doing this in the dark, but it's what I need. So both wheels are turning the same way, so it's a limited slip, that's for sure. Where is this gentleman? I've been to this guy's house before. I recognize this house. I think I've met you before.
You come out and buy that engine?
Yeah, that GMC motor.
How'd that work out for you?
It was good. It worked out fine.
Yeah.
And I also have like a roll-arounder, like, you know those car dollies for the tires?
Yeah.
We can put one end in there, and then we can like push it in.
Oh, okay.
Every genre and the spookiest podcast on the planet. Open the free iHeartRadio app.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I didn't know it would roll that easy. Can you pick it up while I back up,
yeah,
or how do you want to do it?
And then if you keep your window down,
Yeah.
I'll just holler at you.
Yeah, just yell.
Yeah, I'll yell.
There we go. Okay, so as far as the rear end goes, I'm hoping this will be really good for us for a lot of reasons. One, this was supposedly off of a 96 Dodge. Purchase should fit the leaf springs. We shouldn't have to do any modification there. My favorite part of this is that it has discs in the back, which is totally awesome. So we're going to have disc in the front and disc in the back. We're going to have all the same bolt pattern all the way around. It's a limited slip, posi-track, limited slip, same thing. And the gears are also what I wanted, really good gears. They had some different gear sets in these trucks. They had 354s, they had 370 somethings, 373s maybe, I don't remember exactly, and then they had 411s for you know, the trucks that these ran. And I didn't want 411s, I wanted 373s or 354s, which is what this is. And you would think, well, for racing applications, you would want 411s because that's good for takeoff. Well, yeah, but you're thinking, again, gas engines, where 411s usually aren't good for top speed because the engine has to spin so fast to turn your rear tires. But when you're building like a race V8 or something like that, you usually can make that up in RPMs to overcome the 411 top speed issue. Well, with this Cummins, they don't spin as fast as gas engines. I can't wrap this thing up to 6,000, 7,000 RPM. It's never gonna do it. Remember, our max RPM, like at full throttle, is gonna be 3,800, maybe 4,000 RPM. So we can't utilize what 411s can get you in a gas engine. But what we do have that a gas engine doesn't have is we have a lot more torque. So we can afford to have, what would it be? Taller gears or shorter numbers? Short gears or taller numbers. So taller gear sets. We can afford to have 373s or even 354s are really kind of cutting it. 373s are kind of the best of all worlds. But 354s I really like because ultimately you can mess with the gear ratio in the tires. So if the 354s are way too tall, right, and it's sucking off the line, not fast, we can actually lower the tire size, diameter, and we can gain some of that back. Those Dana 60s, they're really tough. If I would have got like a Ford 9-inch or something, it's just, I don't think it's made to handle 1,000 foot-pounds of torque or whatever. You'd have to beef it up somehow, and it would have been a different bolt pattern, blah, blah, blah. This we don't have to modify. We just slam it in. So, very happy about that. I'm just continuing to work on the engine today, and I'm correcting something that I saw yesterday. I noticed that when I put all these pedestals on yesterday, even if the cam wasn't on the lobe pushing the valve down, I swear I could see both valves going down, like just a little bit. And I'm like, that's weird. So let's see, today, yeah, I got this loose. I haven't touched it yet. This one, obviously, it's on the lobe. Watch really closely. I have not touched this yet. Look at that. See that? It was pushing that valve open. So if I wouldn't have caught that, like, and we'd have tried to run this, none of those cylinders would have had compression at all. Wouldn't have ran at all. So I'm just going through adjusting these valves, 10 thousandths intake, 20 thousandths exhaust, and then we can move on. All right, so now I'm going to take this entire assembly off. I think there's 2 bolts that hold it on. I want to get to the front of this engine because we're going to have to do the timing. Oh man. Well, okay, so I'm getting pretty happy about what we have checked off this list here as far as the engine goes. Our head studs in. My new injector should be coming today. Maybe we can get that fixed today. So the only things we have not done to the engine is that last injector nozzle, the rack plug. What the rack plug is if you look, I'm gonna have to clean this off, but you see this like copper washer, there's a bolt, no, I'm sorry, that's a nut, very short bolt, and it's hollow on the inside. And with the boot up here, the AFC spring, the foot, all that is to allow for more rack travel. And we're talking millimeters of going forward, right? Because we were limited with the foot, then we were limited with the spring, and now that those are not limiting us anymore, the only thing limiting how far the rack can move this way is the rack plug. So actually the rack comes out and it will hit the inside of this plug. It's hollow on the inside. The new rack plug essentially is like a deeper cut so the rack can move a couple more millimeters forward to utilize what we did here. But it's going to be sort of a pain to get out because we either have to cut this or we have to move the injection pump back. I don't know which one I want to do yet because we're going to have to get in here anyway. So I think our injector woes are coming to an end. I got the new injector in the mail, swapped out the part that was missing, and got everything back together, and I don't know, I tried getting it as close to 4,000 PSI as I could, shimming it, but it was either crazy one way or crazy the other. So we got it to like 3,700, which is like stock. So it'll run fine, all the whatever. But check this out, this is kind of neat. Every time that piston comes up on the compression stroke, it puts a blast of fuel in there, right? Every time it's see that spray pattern? You can see all 5. Nice and pretty. Look at that, a thing of beauty. All the 5x16 injectors are in, injector hold down nuts are tight, the return lines are on, copper washers, all that tight, injector lines on, tight, hold downs, everything is tight and sealed up. Now, we can finally knock that off the list. Injector nozzles. Next time I do this, if I ever do this again, I am probably not going to buy the nozzles. I don't think for the money I saved that it was worth the time I spent jacking with all that. I'll probably just buy injectors in the future. That was a mess. But hey, at least we got to learn and do it, and you know, we saw the inside of an injector, and yeah, it was an interesting learning experience. But yeah, I don't want to do that again. See, this is basically a bolt nut looking affair, and it like tricks it into letting it go further before it bottoms out. Yeah, it cracked loose. It didn't want to though. You know, and really, I don't have the proper wrench to fit this. I'm using an 1 1/8. An inch won't fit. 1 1/8 is a little too big. 24 is too small. 26 is too small. I don't have a 27. It cracked it though. It was pretty on there, man. It's wiggling like it's, there it is, the little slot worked great. All right. So you can see exactly what I did. Took my carbide wheel from Harbor Freight, notched it, put the original copper washer in, and the bigger rack plug. You can see that the depth, see how this one's shallower, that one's bigger. So put this back over it, just like it's factory, and nobody will ever be the wiser, except you guys. Don't tell anybody. Okay, so what we're going to do now is time the engine. Okay, so on this data plate right here, it tells you what the stock timing is. And the stock timing per this data plate is 12.3 degrees, which is actually really low. Usually they're at 14 from what I've read, but we got to put it at 18 degrees. So we got to move it a full 6 degrees advanced, all right? And to do that, we have to time the engine and time the pump, meaning we got to put the engine at top dead center and then make sure the pump is at stock timing, which would be 12.3 degrees, to make sure no one's advanced this before. So there's two ways. There's a way we do both. Okay, so right now we're going to find top dead center number 1 on the engine, and there's a pin back here, a plastic pin that you push in. Did you hear it? Now it's pushed up against the cam gear, and you rotate the engine until it like you'll hear it pop in. There's a hole in the cam gear, so we're going to rotate the engine till we hear it click in. There it is. Okay, so now I'm going to pull the pin back out because I don't want to accidentally rotate the engine with that pin in. You'll bust the pin. So we know it's at top dead center number 1 now. There is a pin, it's like a tool, there's a pin inside this pump. When they rebuild these pumps in like a shop, when they get the pump all done, they'll do what they call lock time it. So they'll send the pump back to you always at top dead center number 1, assuming that you have the engine at top dead center number 1 to put the pump back in lickety split. So we're going to utilize that tool right now to make sure it's at top dead center number 1 of the compression stroke at the correct timing. Okay, so here is that little tool. See how it's like got like a little slotted edge on it? We're actually going to turn it around. I was originally worried that I would have to fill this back up, but these P pumps are fed by the engine, so there's no need to fill it back up. So if the pump is timed correctly, this pin should, oh, see? So I have it vertical, and when I go in, I'm hitting something. But if I turn it horizontally, see how it goes in? All right, so vertical, it's hitting like a little bar in there. Horizontal, it slips in. So if it slips all the way in, there. This pump is timed correctly. Now we come to the injection pump gear. So we take the oil fill plug off, oil fill tube. This nut is the shaft of the injection pump. Here's the nut, and then the gear is attached to it that is connected to the cam. So we have to take this nut off and actually use a puller to pull the gear off to disengage the pump from the rotating assembly of the engine so that we can rotate the engine freely of the pump. Let's see if we can pop it loose without turning the engine. You know, it actually might be better to get an impact on it because it's going to, sometimes you kind of want a little blast rather than slow torquing it. Okay. I don't feel like we turned anything. I didn't feel anything shift whatsoever. So this is Powerdriven's timing gear puller kit that they sent along with all the other stuff. So where are we at? All right. Man, that's on there tight. Wow. I have just a piece of mechanics wire on this timing wheel, and we want to advance the engine 6 degrees. So we're gonna go counterclockwise with the engine. Well, I was at 12.3 degrees, but we'll just go an even 6. So okay, that was like pretty much right there. So let's go just a little bit more. Okay, so let's go back. So that's 5, so we're gonna go back. That's too much. That's 6 right there. 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so yeah. And we torque this to 144 foot-pounds, which makes me nervous. Oh my gosh. 144. Not like that's not a lot to make a guy nervous. All right, so today is the day. They got a heavy crew of guys out here. Everybody is on deck. They're putting the skirting up. They're finishing the foundational concrete, and they're mixing the mortar for the cinder blocks. Man, this is gonna look so good. They got their mud boards. Yes, sir. So excited. Okay, so the boys are done and gone, and doesn't that look beautiful? Makes the house look like a home. They put these breather pieces in up top there, just, you know, for breathability, and they have wire mesh on the other side, so stuff still can't crawl through if it gets up in there. There's two openings, one here and one here. It's like code, you know, you got to have two 36-inch openings so you can get underneath the house, obviously, to do plumbing or electric or leak or spray for bugs or whatever. So man, this just looks so good. Check it out, they got wire mesh right there, so even if something does get up in there, it can't get through. I'll have to put doors on these. That's what you're supposed to do. You put like some door or a cover or whatever, like some removable thing, so you can get under there. But yeah, I was gonna do vinyl skirting just because I didn't want to spend the money on block, but we had some waves of storms this summer, and it literally blew off some people's vinyl skirting that was brand new, and it wasn't even a couple years old. So I said, you know what, I'm not even gonna mess around with that. I'm just gonna do block, do it once, it looks good. Got all my stuff put back here. You noticed earlier in the video it was all right here. That's so they could get in and work, but I'm very happy with it. They did a great job, and it just looks super good, and it will last hopefully my entire life. All right, so everything is put back together. I just went ahead and did it. The radiator housing and all that. Let's see, what would you call that? This radiator core support? Yeah, the radiator core support with all the radiators. Put that on, put the bolts on, put the boots on for the turbo. Radiator hoses are on, radiator is full of water. Did an oil change, oil filter, and the gas tank is hooked back up, so it's just hooked up to the factory gas tank, really. I mean, the motor thinks the truck is still there. The injectors are cracked. I mean, we're ready to rock and roll and bleed this thing and see if I did a good job. We'll see if I did it right or wrong.
We'll see.
Why does it sound like one of those cylinders doesn't have compression?
Charger up to it. I see one starting to, I see two starting. You know, these don't bleed as fast as them old ones, because I screwed my truck up one time, my white Dodge. It took a while
to bleed them. Yeah, those VE pumps bleed quick.
That one on my white Dodge, when I messed up, man, I was starting to get concerned. It took it a lot longer. I was used to those. I was used to the VE pumps.
One of them cylinders just don't sound like it has any compression.
Well, we ain't done nothing to the cylinders. You should change it.
How many of them are going?
This one, this one, this one. This one's
lagging.
It ain't. It's lagging. And then let me look again.
Okay.
You can tighten these back ones up.
Okay. Where's that piece of wood?
It's right here.
All right. So all the injectors are closed. This is attempt number 1 to start the 600 horsepower Cummins. Pretty nervous. So this we'll see if I did everything right. idle's kind of junky, but if you give it some gas, it goes away. Hear that? I don't know, you know, if you put those governor springs in wrong or if you don't adjust those little notch screws right, they say you can have a bad idle. That might be what I did, I don't know.
Not leaking anything.
Not leaking any fuel. Well, it sounds okay, but, so listen. See it jiggling? But then if I accelerate a little higher, it gets out of it. Now it's firing on all 6 now. That's all 6. Still sounds good. When you go closer to idle, boom. Then that's idle. So, obviously a few things you can conclude. We know we have compression. I adjusted the valves right. Every cylinder will fire, so they all have got compression. Every one of the injectors is not plugged and working. Again, because once we get out of idle, we can hear everything working. Everything sounds beautiful above idle into acceleration. Just that low RPM is sucking. But it runs. I mean, that was a success. It ran.
It does run.
I mean, nothing broke. I didn't hear a big snap.
No, we'll get to the bottom of it.
I'd say all in all, because you got to think, when most guys are doing like mods to their truck or their Cummins, they're doing one at a time, right? Like they'll do governor springs and then drive it to work and blah, blah, blah. And then they'll put a turbo on it and then they'll do the timing. We did everything in one go. There was a lot to do in one swoop. So I think for doing all that and then just cold cocking it, I think that was a pretty good success, actually. That's a very small problem that can be worked out. Motor runs, it's good. I'm happy with that.
Good. It ain't blowing out a bunch of black smoke.
No, even on first start, it didn't blow out any black. I thought it was going to be like, I thought it was going to go everywhere. What we're doing here, we're tightening up these injector lines because we had them off because we're chasing that mist problem. So I'm just giving some backstory because they don't know all the stuff I just did. So I called Powerdriven about that miss problem and I sent them a video, and this guy Tim, nice guy, he said that sounds like rack bounce. And I said, okay, well, what is that? And basically it's just what he said, rack bounce. So you can take this AFC housing off that's right behind these injection lines. You can look at the rack, and if it's bouncing, you have a problem. And I looked at it and I ran it and it was bouncing. So I took this housing off, I ran it, I looked down in there, the rack was doing this. But then when you get to a higher RPM, it steadies out. So I was thinking, okay, it's the governor springs. Remember, when I put the governor springs in, you tighten down that nut. Well, that nut is an adjustment. And if you have those adjustments out of whack, one will be tighter than the other, and it can cause the pump to be out of balance, okay? So I was thinking it was the governor springs. It still could be. So I spent 6-7 hours yesterday adjusting those governor springs. In and out, every which way. I could never adjust that shakeout. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it's the injectors. So when we were running it, you could undo 2, 4, and maybe even 6, but 2 and 4 for sure. You could loosen the injector nut and it wouldn't change the idle. But you'd tighten them up and then you'd rev it and it would come out of the funk. So I'm like, I don't know how it could be the injectors. What we just did was just to make sure, took the injector lines off, put number 2 and number 3, and put number 3 and number 2, and if the miss moves to number 2, we have an injector problem. But if it doesn't move, it's not. It's behind the injectors. It's something over here. So we're just trying to eliminate the problem that it could be an injector. Okay. So 3 was firing before. Let's try 2. If 2 wasn't firing. See, now it's picked it up. It's not an injector problem. So it's definitely not. And look, and if it was a delivery valve issue, again, say you had a delivery valve, we put them in wrong or messed it up or I don't know, then it would just be a straight miss. Like it would just never, how come it gets out of it? I think there's some balancing problem in the pump.
So do you have your old springs? Why can't you put your old ones back in?
I can. All right, so I took the new governor springs out and I put the factory ones back in, and we're gonna run it and see if it runs good.
Same thing.
Same exact problem.
Same identical thing. So could it be in that rack over there? I mean, what else you got? Governor springs, identical. Switch out the injectors, same identical thing. What do you got left? And if that don't fix it, I don't know. There's one thing we don't know. Do they run odd like this when you do all that? I mean, are you trying to get something out of it that ain't gonna go away?
So as far as the engine goes, we're just gonna have to come back to that stumbling problem. I don't know what it is. I tore my hair out for 2 days trying to adjust the governor springs, chase the problem down. The problem is pre-injector. Is it supposed to sound like that? Or is it a real problem? I'm just gonna have to table it. I gotta move on. But this is not a failure, this is a success. We did all that stuff, we did a lot of stuff in one go, and it sounds great for the most part. Like, it really sounds good. I think all the parts are legit, I think they're high quality parts. I think we did a good job with doing everything we did, head studs and timing and the nozzles and the turbo and all that. I think we did good. I think it sounds great for the most part. You know, this is not a failure. This is just a little problem, like it just gets in my craw, that kind of stuff. But all in all, I think it's a success. So what we're moving on to now, which will be in the next video, is the transmission. Let me show you that. We have to rebuild the 47RH to handle the horsepower that the engine is now making. So this is all apart on the bench, and got a kit. So this is Powerdriven Diesel 650 horsepower transmission kit. It's got upgraded clutches and steels. It has a couple of billet parts, like different servos, billet servo and billet strut, and some anchors in there that are higher quality. It's got a billet input shaft. This end is what goes in the transmission, or I'm sorry, the torque converter, the splined end. New band. This is a shift kit for the valve body, so we can lock up the torque converter in second, third, and fourth, and it beefs up the valve body, and you can change your shift points, and it shifts harder and faster and better and whatever. And then here's all the components right here. You know, you got some planetaries and drums, and you know, you got clutches in here and front pump and all kinds of stuff that most people never see because most people don't do transmission. So that'll all be in another video, the next one, I think. And as far as the body goes, as to what we're going to put on this, I still don't have it. I'll show you a picture of something I found in Phoenix. It looks kind of cool. It's a 1950 Dodge DeSoto that already looks like it had the top chopped some years ago. It's kind of taken apart and everything, but I think $2,500 for that car is what he wants, is a little high for what it is, even though we're not putting it back together. Like $2,500 for the shell of a car that's not really desirable, that's had custom modifications that most people probably don't like. You know, probably not going to do a truck, because if you think about how the trucks were back in the day, like if you look at my GMC here, so the whole point of this is to keep all this stuff because it's nice and wide. You know, you have plenty of cooling ability, plenty of intercooler, all that good. You have a trans cooler, you have a condenser if you so desire to put air conditioning in whatever we're going to do. It's very, very wide. And look at this. This is how all these old trucks are, like all of them, okay? Look at how narrow that is. There's no way you're fitting that in there. You're going to be headlight to headlight with that radiator. It's just not going to work. But the cars of that era, though, trucks are cool, but cars are cool too. So look at how wide these are. You know, so if you pick something out of the late 40s or early 50s or something like that, you're going to have a wide enough front end, because really the problem is going to be fitting this. Something out of the 30s, car or truck, probably ain't going to work. We're probably looking at late 40s, early 50s stuff. And some people have speculated that I was going to do this build to build like a wrecker, like an old school looking wrecker to go like rescue cars, which is a neat idea. I like that idea. Or put some kind of a truck cab on, because obviously this was a truck. But I'm thinking more along the lines of a car, because this isn't going to be for towing. It's not going to be functional like, you know, daily driver, go get groceries in it. This is made for looking cool, going fast, doing burnouts, making power, making smoke. That's what this is for. So the next video will be an entire rebuild on the transmission. Once we have the body, then we can make the frame and shorten it and do our measurements, because I got the rear end, trans, engine. I don't have a drive shaft. You can't make one till you know the measurements. Can't have measurements till you have a body. Dad and I always appreciate you guys watching so much. Thank you for the views and the support and the comments. It means a lot to us. And thank you for all the congratulations on Emily being pregnant. That was like every single comment in the last video. Nobody cared about the truck or the car or what we did. It was like everything was like, congrats on the baby. So thank you guys for that support. Really appreciate that. Emily's probably, by the time this video comes out, going to be 21 weeks. So she's going to be halfway through by the time this comes out. So it's going to be a wild ride. And we'll see you guys in the next video.